Hey there, Michael. Hope you're doing great today. This is your video lesson. Let's see here. One large topic I want to talk about. I'll talk about that topic, and then if you have questions at the end or want me to look at anything, feel free to send those over my way. We'll be out next Monday for Labor Day, but we'll be in the following week, and we'll take all this stuff that we'll talk about today, break it down even more if we need to, and then we'll start slowly assembling it so you have a full presentation of our first goal. So I was just kind of jamming over a backing track in the style of Jimi Hendrix, and the cool thing about playing in the style of somebody is that it's all quantifiable, right? These people, Jimi Hendrix sounds like Jimi Hendrix because he's doing certain things all the time. Neil Young sounds like Neil Young because he's doing certain things all the time. Rush sounds like Rush because they're doing this. Yes sounds like Yes because they're doing this. Pink Floyd sounds like Pink Floyd because they're doing this. And if we break those down and just kind of recognize what they're doing, we can mimic their style, and then you start kind of getting your own kind of your own style if you do that enough. You kind of borrow things from this and this and this, and there's no such thing as original thought, I suppose you could say. Whenever you're creating something, you don't just go to a blank wall and say, paint, young man, there's a wall here, just create, right? You have to emulate and imitate things first and break things down and learn other people's art. And then that gives you a jumping off point for things that you like, and otherwise this is too abstract. But that's for another day. So I'll go through all the parts of Fire, and like I said, if you have questions, feel free to send them over to me. So I'll start at the intro of the song. This song uses two scales. The main part of the song, the intro, verse, and chorus, use D minor pentatonic. For the solo section, Jimi Hendrix does what's called changing keys. He moves to a different key, and he solos in E minor pentatonic. So the solo section all the way through the end is going to be E minor pentatonic, and the first bit's going to be D minor pentatonic. So that's where all this material is coming from. But the nice thing is that those two scales are very close together in terms of like learning. So you should do both. The first riff in here is one we already covered, but I'm going to play all the parts today so you can have that to practice over the one weekend. So you have here what's called an octave box. An octave box is two notes. So you have a note here on the fifth string. This is a G sharp right here. And then I'm going to go down two strings and over two frets, and that's going to give me another G sharp and one octave higher. I think you already know what an octave is, but just in case it slipped your mind, what that means is it's the same note. You go through the whole musical alphabet, and you land back to that same note again. So you have G sharp A sharp B, C sharp, blah, 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 and all the way back to a G sharp, and you get the same exact note. And you're going to want to know these octave boxes all over the fretboard, especially for the music that you're into, because it's used quite a bit. So I have my octave box here, and I'm going to go down to the 10th fret, and then I'm going to go to the 8th fret here on the 5th string, slide up to 10, and then grab 10 on the 6th string. So we have this. We have 11, 10, 8, 10, 10, 10. How would I practice that? First I would tune my guitar. This guitar is not quite in tune. Oop, yeah, not quite in tune, but it'll work for right now. I don't want to stop the video and start tuning a guitar. It's fine. So I want to practice the quick movements, right? Isolated. I don't want to try to play the whole riff all in one go, right? I want to break it into small pieces. That way I can make everything flow better. So basically when you're learning riffs, you're not trying to play like beginning to end just repeatedly over and over again. That just takes too long, right? If you ever get there, right? When I'm learning riffs, especially complicated riffs, not that this riff is overly complicated, but it's good to learn the process first, is I'll just practice doing this. And then I'll go to the next bit. I'll go 8, 8, 10. And I'll practice that slide. Don't press too hard, otherwise you'll be a lot harder if you try to slide really hard. Keep your fingers light. Slide 8, 10. What I'm doing when I'm sliding, I'm looking where I'm going. When I do that slide, I'm looking at 8 right first, and then my eyes are on 10. And when I hit that 10, when I hit that 8, I'm going to slide, I'm looking right where I'm going to be, right? So I'm not like looking at my finger, I'm looking at where I'm going to be. It's kind of driving a car, right? If I'm looking where I'm going to be, I can slide and maybe miss my target, right? So you want to make that clean slide every single time, right? And then the 10-10 is pretty easy. And the thing that everybody forgets to do is loop the riff because it's repeated. That's way Jimi Hendrix sound, by the way. There's like a lot of cool stuff actually to talk about in that, but we don't have time for that today. Let's save that for another day, what he's actually doing there. Right, but that's a talk for another time. So we have this. Now remember, I practiced it in pieces. I just didn't loop it over and over again in hopes that fingers crossed I'm going to nail it this time, right? That's not the way to go about things when you're trying to learn music quickly and more complex music, right? You want to build your, you want to think about your process of learning with something like this rather than think about your process of learning when it's like really hard and then you get frustrated. That's why people quit, is because they tried too hard stuff in the beginning when they're trying to work out their process of how do I even learn this stuff, right? So it's not like, hey, we're gonna play Dream On and that riff is, that lick is really hard, right? I'm gonna learn my process there. No, learn your process here with something that's kind of like, think about rock climbing, right? So say if our goal is to climb El Capitan, right? We're gonna go to Yosemite, we're gonna climb the steepest sheer rock face that there ever was. Is it better to learn how to climb on that bad boy, or should we go down to the climbing gym and get a feel for it first? And okay, this is how the ropes work. This is what they're doing up there, right? Learn your grip here. Learn how to, learn your process of climbing here. Then when you get that process kind of shedded in a controlled environment, then you go, okay, let's go to the flat irons, because that's kind of like the same kind of thing. But now we're going to up the game a little bit and see if we can make that same process work there. And then you slowly step your way up to harder things, and then that way you refine your process in the meantime, and then you get there without freaking out or like getting up there like, oh cry, I can't do it, I can't go forward, I can't go backwards. Anyway, so that's just the thing about learning and what I've discovered over the years of teaching people. So there's the intro riff. The verse riff is not overly complicated. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 12, 10, 12, 12. I tabbed it out for you right here, so it's actually pretty straightforward. You're gonna wanna practice with the recording, right? The hard part of this stuff is not playing just the riff by itself, right? Because and that riff isn't the hardest thing in the world by any stretch. But it's hard to go from without dropping time and making sure you nail it in the recording, right? When you're playing along, because that's the hard part about playing lead guitar, is that not only do you have to play the riff, but you have to get into the next riff in time without dropping the beat. So you practice something like this first, right? So you do. Now when I'm practicing transitions, this is what I'll do. Slow, slow. So I'll do. I practice the end of the previous riff, and then I go to the beginning of the next riff. So I'll practice going. So I can practice transitioning. That's where the real practice lies, and if you want to up your game to play with a band or play open mic, or I know that's one of your goals. If you want to put the recording on and display, right? You want to practice the transitions from things from one riff to the next, because that's where people will kind of slip up a little bit. God knows I practice this all the time. Cool. So that's the intro and verse riff. The chorus riff is a D5. Power chord here at the 5th fret. Like I said, we'll go all the parts, and if you want me to break it down the following lesson, we can totally do that. So I have this here. I have a D5, and then I go down to C5 here at the 3rd fret on the 5th string. So power chord here on the 5th fret, 5th string, down to D5. Down, 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 up, 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 down, down, up, down, up. If you have trouble with that, just do this first. Just practice the transition first. Then on one chord, down, 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 up. Next chord, up, up, down, down, down. And slow. So he basically repeats those two ideas. I think those three things, he repeats each one. He does like intro, verse, chorus, and then he'll go back to the intro. I have to listen to the recording. I'm pretty sure he goes back to the intro, does the verse again, and then the chorus. And then he does what's called the bridge. And the bridge is just a change of scenery, basically. Like, we've heard the same material twice already. What the purpose of this bridge is to break things up a bit and create some sort of interest. And what he's going to do for this part, he's just going to hit chords, just one hit. D, 2, 3, 4. He's going to count 2 bars of each one, 2 measures of each chord. He's going to hit a D5 chord first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, down to C5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. He's going to go to A5 here on the 5th fret of the 6th string. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. He's going to go back to C5. So move over like Jimmy Takeover kind of section. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3. And then he goes into the chorus, and this is where we change keys from D minor to E minor pentatonic. And this is why we're practicing the E minor pentatonic box. All this stuff here. Right? So that way we can solo over top of this section. Like I said, this is a lot of material for today. Don't feel like you have to get through all of it. If you just get through those first 3 riffs, if that's all you have time for, dude, that's great. Just do the first riff if that's all you have time for. Don't feel like you gotta do the whole thing. Part of what I'm doing now is I'm gauging how much stuff can you do in 1 week. So that's kind of what I'm learning right now, is how much can I give Michael and how much is he gonna come back with, right? So that's what I'm dialing in right now. So it's not necessarily like, oh, like, well, I'm gonna be pissy or anything like that. If you can't, don't get pissy. Right? Like, oh, if he comes up with the first riff, that just tells me that, oh, that's how much time he has to practice. So what I'm doing here is I'm dialing in how much I can give you in 1 week. So I need a couple samples first before I can really kind of make a determination of like, oh, here's the whole thing of Fire, right? How about that? Or here's the first riff of Fire. It's the whole thing. We'll see what you come back with, okay? And we'll just work from there. That's just where we're starting. That's where baseline is, right? So we have chorus, the solo rhythm part, because remember, even if you're the soloist, you still need to play the chord changes because you need to know what you're playing over top of, right? So even the soloist has to play the chord changes. You don't show up to a jam and be like, hey, I'm here to solo, everybody, right? No, they're going to expect you to play the rhythm part, and then you take your turn for the solo. So you don't just show up and I can play the licks, but you got to play all the parts, right? So E5 is the same rhythm as before. You took this chord progression, this from the chorus, the D5 and the C5, and all he does, he moves his chords up 2 frets, and he's in E minor. So he's a D5 to C5 here, and then what he does for the chorus, that was the chorus. For the solo rhythm part, he moves up to E5 and D5. So chorus was this. And then for the solo, and it's cool because what happened here is he made the whole thing, since it changed keys and it went up, the whole song feels like it just lifts up into the stratosphere. That's what's cool about Hendrix, is that he's not using overly complicated music theory, right? You don't need to understand Hendrix. You really don't understand. You don't need to know, music theory. Fretboard theory is a different matter. But as far as understanding Hendrix, he's not in this era. This not that he had long eras, but like this Are You Experienced era. He's not like using crazy jazz theory. He's just not doing that. He took the same chord progression and moved it up 2 frets. That's really what he's did. Chorus, and then we go solo. And like I said, they just like moved that up 2 frets. I felt like the whole song, just like the rocket ship, you press the button, the rocket ship just launched into space. So E5, down, 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 up to the D5, up, up, down, down, up, down. I have some tools to help you with that rhythm if you find that challenging. I have some spoken word things you can do to help you kind of get that rhythm in your ear, but we can talk about that next time. I don't want to do that over asynchronous because it might get confusing. So I'm much rather have you in the back and forth dialogue with me doing that. And then the solo lick, remember we talked last time about this song, about soloing, is that you have sequence patterns that you want to stick to, because if you deviate from those, it loses its musicality. If you listen to a lot of guitar solos, there are patterns abound in there. When they're not doing patterns, they're usually doing some sort of like lick like this. I'm going to show you. But really the foundation for a lot of solos, especially the ones that you're listening to, the S and Rush stuff, they're heavily pattern oriented, which is why we're talking about those sequence patterns. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. We already talked about it, so I'm going to show you just real quick. You should be able to go through the whole thing like that. If you can get that down, you're well on your way and playing more intermediate guitar lead parts, right? But first things first, you got to be able to play that. Then we talked last week about the string bend, and that we're trying to aim for a certain note, so you got to practice putting that backtrack on with the note E, and like, trying to bend 2 frets up, I'm trying to make it accurate. So what he does here is he does 3 bends on the 15th fret in the E minor pentatonic scale. So he's in this scale box. So when we talk about E minor pentatonic, that's where he is. He's going to go here to the 15th fret on the 2nd string. He's going to bend that 3 times. Which is why I wanted you to practice string bends, because if you try to learn it while you're on the song, it's a lot harder. So if you spent like 2 weeks learning how to do string bends and then you try this, it's much, much easier, right? You'll learn the technique first, then you learn it in like a controlled situation, and then you apply it to a song. So you learn the string bend, you do it with a backing track, and then you do it in a song. And if you do it in that order, it's gonna be much easier, and it's like eating the elephant 1 bite at a time, right? If you see the elephant of, I don't know, like, Axis Bold as Love, or Little Wing, or Castles Made of Sand, some of his harder tunes. You see that elephant, and you go, I'm gonna try to swallow that whole bad boy right now, right? Dude, you're gonna not have a good day. But if you go, okay, I'm gonna carve a little piece out, that elephant, my whole elephant, I wanna learn how to play like Hendrix, right? Just 1 piece at a time, and then over the course of years, you'll slowly assimilate his playing into your playing, and you'll sound like Hendrix. It did not sound like that when I first started this journey. It took a long time, but I got there though, because I ate the elephant 1 bite at a time, and I was patient. A great master once said, the quick and easy path leads to the dark side. So if you're trying to rush it, you're gonna have a lot of problems. But if you take it 1 step at a time, like something like this, you have a lot easier time, I promise you. Right, anyway, there's enough talking. And so back to 15. And then you land on that 12 right there on the 3rd string. Right? And then what he's gonna do 3 more string bends. This is the 2nd lick. Instead of landing on the 12 this time, he's gonna land on the 14. Now, how to make this sound more like Hendrix? I'll do it one more time before I go into that state. So you bend that 15, 15, 15, bring it back down each time. And then land on that 14 right there. So he has 2 main ideas that are happening in the solo, and he pivots between the 2. He's letting his guitar rig do the heavy lifting for him in terms of tone and sound. What you're hearing here in this recording is that, man, this sounds like a cacophony of like things happening, and it's meant to be that way. What he's doing here, he's using what's called a fuzz face. I have a big muff here, so it's not exactly what Hendrix is using, but it's pretty close. So I'm gonna turn my big muff pedal on here, and then I need some sort of movement in the sound. What he's doing here, he's using what's called a modulation effect. More than likely what he's probably using is some sort of univibe. It's basically what it is he's picture an organ, right? A keyboard organ. And what he's done here is he's made his guitar sound like the spinning horn in a Leslie cabinet, right? If you heard Pink Floyd and you hear that swirls up and Comfortably Numb, that's what that sound is, right? A lot of bands use this effect, and a modulation just means that the frequency is being modulated really wildly. So he's emulating the sound of a organ cabinet. Now, how do you get this on here? Is I'm just going to punch up a flanger over here. There's all kinds. We can talk more about this later on, but as far as tone, I'll click a flanger on. And it's going to give some motion to my sound. It's going to sound like this. See it swirling? Right now we're in psychedelic 70s lane. Here's my psychedelic sound. See, a lot of what's happening is the guitar effect itself. So if you want to sound like him, you need that, You know, we all need to buy more stuff, don't we? That's the gear that you'd use. So if I play that now with, I'm going to play it once without effects and then once with effects, and you'll hear the difference of why it matters. So here's the solo. There it is, that's better. It's basically back and forth doing the same things. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the fuzz and I'm going to turn on the flanger. We're going to hear how that sounds now. Sounds a lot better. Now that technique right there, that's another talk for another day, but that's another thing that he does, but we'll talk about that later. Now what you're going to want to practice is with a backing track. I've pulled up a Hendrix style backing track. I'll send it to you so you have it. But basically it's just an E minor Jimi Hendrix backing track. And this stuff is awesome. I'd sit here like all day and practice with this stuff if I could. If I didn't have any other responsibilities, I would sit here with backing tracks and just noodle, like solo noodle about all day. So I'm going to hit play on this thing, like I did at the beginning of the lesson. This one's modeled after Purple Haze, which is the same key as Fire, which is why we're running E minor pentatonic, because he does a lot of things in E minor. Sequences. Showing off a bit. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. See what I did there, man? What was I did? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Hendrix lick. But one step at a time, we'll combine all that stuff later on. Like I said, for this week, just focus on getting all the parts down as much as you can. And then I'll show you next time on how to assemble them all and then make a fine presentation of like, here's me playing Jimi Hendrix Fire. I'm the lead guitarist. I can solo over this. I know what he's doing, right? That's kind of the goal, is that I want you to have a presentation of when I go to a jam and I can play Fire, I know the rhythm parts. I know the scales he's using. I know how to jam over it. I know how to play all the parts, right? Like I said, and that you can keep up with everybody. That's my goal for you for your first goal. Awesome. So work on that stuff for me. Like I said, if you want me to take a look at anything, feel free to send it over my way. If not, I'll see you after Labor Day. Take care, man.